Hi, my name's Andy Burgess. I'm a product specialist for Aston Martin, and what I'd like to do is take you for a drive in the most driver-focused sports car of our Aston Martin range, Vantage. So let's jump in and have a drive. So we're going to take you for a drive in this Vantage. So first things first, we're going to explain what we're going to do. We're going to take you through the buttons that are on the steering wheel here, the sport button and the suspension button. And also we're going to use the paddles as well. So just to explain some of the modes. Sport button has three modes: Sport, Sport Plus and Track. And same with the suspension, Sport, Sport Plus and Track. And we'll take you through each one and try to get you to understand and feel what the difference is. So first things first, we'll get it started. So we put our foot on the brake, the illumination will happen on the start button, and then just give it one press. So whenever you start the car, it'll always be in its default setting, which is Sport, and the whole of the dash will look in a white mode. As we press the right hand button, it goes to Sport Plus. We press it again and it goes to Track. Same with the other side, we press it once, it goes to Sport Plus, press it once more and it goes to Track. If we press them again, it reverts back to the original, which is Sport. So it basically rolls through those three modes. So let's get going. We're going to use the automatic. So we're going to press the D button with our foot on the brake and away we go. So the Vantage is our sports car within our Aston Martin family, and it definitely feels that way when you drive it. It feels agile, light, nimble, really dynamic. When you turn into a corner, it just turns in beautifully. Very, very pointy. Acceleration's phenomenal, and it's like a real fun car. That's what this car is all about, is fun. But also a car that you can definitely use every day. It's not tiresome to drive, it's easy to drive, relaxing almost in certain modes when you have it in this sport mode. So we're driving at the moment in sport mode, in both the engine and gearbox mode and the suspension mode, in automatic. So this car is, as I said earlier on, a very much a everyday car. It's not harsh, it's not fierce, it's not bone shaker in terms of its ride. It's an adaptive damping system, so it's in its soft mode, but it also adapts as you go through corners. So it never feels like it's wallowing or leaning. Really just feels like an amazing sports car. So we're coming up to some traffic lights now. We're going to go through these traffic lights. We're doing around about 30, 39, 40 miles an hour. It's around about a 50 or 60 mile an hour zone around here. What we're going to do is we're going to run through the modes on the right hand button, the sport button, and take you through the Sport, Sport Plus and the Track mode, and explain what's happening and what I'm feeling as I'm going through those. And this is what we want you to do when you're driving a Vantage on your test drive, is try all these different buttons and try all these different modes. So come up to this roundabout. Once we do a left at this roundabout, then we'll start to use some of the buttons, the different modes, to show you what happens. So we're doing 30 miles an hour, we're in 6th gear, in automatic, in sport. I'm going to press the right hand button once and that will put it into its Sport Plus mode. So as soon as I touch that button, it drops 2 gears. It goes down from 7th to 5th gear. I can feel a little bit more throttle response, and I can hear that engine just a little bit more. Not much more, but just a little bit more. But as soon as I touch the throttle now, it drops a gear quite readily. Whereas before it was in sport, I'd have to put my foot down a little bit further to make it drop a gear. But now it's quite easy to just hit that throttle a little bit and it drops down into 5th gear. So if I then press the button once more and go into track mode, so track mode is really quite an aggressive mode, and straight away it's gone into 4th gear. And you can really hear that engine note now, and it's holding on to that gear. So I'll brake a little bit, just take a little bit of speed off, and as soon as I touch the brake, it drops a gear, blips the throttle. And on the overrun as well, you get a lovely pop and a crackle from it. So track mode is much more responsive, much more vocal as well with that engine. Holding on to that gear all the time. As soon as I touch the brake, bang, it goes down into 3rd gear, drops that gear, blips the throttle, and it's ready again. Suspension's still on sport, so it's still quite compliant. Let's go back to sport, so we press it once more and everything calms down. So the noise goes, as you can hear, it goes up the gearbox. It's 8-speed gearbox, so I'm in 7th gear now. Now it's in 8th gear at 50 miles an hour. Very relaxed. Let's press it once more, we go into Sport Plus, and it drops from 8th to 6th. The throttle becomes more responsive. Off we go. Start to accelerate a little bit. You can really start to hear that engine note now. So we'll press that button again, we'll put it into track mode, and it drops a gear, 2 gears, down to 4th gear now. You can really hear that engine note. Start to brake, and it pops and bangs through that, and crackles through that exhaust system. So track mode is really the fun mode. Quite aggressive on the gearbox though, we'll hold on to the gear quite a lot. So if you find that too aggressive, you think, I like track, I like the noise it makes, I like the throttle response, but I'm not liking maybe the way it's holding onto a gear, that's when you'd use the paddles. So the paddle shifts are here, minus and plus. Just pull the plus and that takes it out of automatic, and then you're in 5th gear. So now I'm still in track mode, I'm still getting all those lovely little pops and crackles from the exhaust, but now I can control it. So I've just dropped a gear to 4th. Come off the power and you get that little crackle from the rear. Lots of torque in this car though. It's nearly 700 Newton meters of torque from this V8. So it's very rare you have to drop a gear for it to go quickly. Every gear just pulls you in, pushes you in the back. Yeah, that's amazing noise. Gives a little bark out the rear as well as you change gear in track mode. So if you're into your sports cars, if you like that kind of noise from an exhaust system, track mode is the one for you really. Put it back into auto, so pull and hold the paddle on the right hand side, puts it back into auto, or you can press the button. There we go, it's in 8th gear. So let's look at the suspension side of things now. So this is the left hand side button with a suspension damper on it. If we press it once, we go into the plus mode. What that does is just makes my damper a little bit firm. I'm just going through some nice little twisties here, and the car just feels a little bit tighter. Really quite nice actually. The steering's got a bit more weight to it, so it affects the steering too. And then if we press it once more, we've got a nice right-hander coming up. Goes into track mode on the suspension, and that really does stiffen it up. Now the car just feels really, really light now. And as I'm going through the corner, it's not leaning one little bit. The car just feels absolutely planted. We have electronic rear differential on the Vantage, and you really notice that when you're getting on the power coming out of a corner. The grip on that is unbelievable. So we're going through a bit of a bumpy road now, so you can start to feel those bumps because we're in track mode. So the beauty of this car is you can press that button once more, and it drops back down to sport. There you go, the bumps are gone. Generally the car is firmer because it's a sports car though, but it never rolls, never leans. Always feels like it's dynamic and you're sitting in a sports car. So it really is versatile, this car, as a sports car. You know, some sports cars you buy are real bone shakers. You know, you have to live with that ride all the time, but not with this. And it makes the car more of an everyday sports car because of that side to it. So let's go back to sport. Let's go into track mode. So we can really mix and match as well. You can have soft suspension and noisy side on the exhaust and the throttle. I'm going to be in paddle mode now. I prefer to drive paddles in a sports car, so I have control. So I'm in 4th gear now. Okay, we're coming out of a junction, we're in track mode. And a 60-mile-an-hour limit here. Pull that paddle, 3rd gear, and there we go, we're at 60 miles an hour, we're just backing off now. Just gives you loads more control in the paddle mode. If you want to go back to auto for any reason, you just press the D, or you pull and hold the plus, and then that goes back to its auto setting. But you can also mix and match. So if you're in auto like I am now, you come across a vehicle in front of you that you want to overtake, but you really don't want to drop down 2 or 3 gears, you just want to drop down 1 gear. So I'm in 4th gear at the moment. I can just use my paddle, drop down 1 gear, do my manoeuvre, back up, and then back into auto. Such a lovely thing to drive, it really is. So I'm just going to drop a gear, do a little bit of acceleration, all within the speed limit. There we go. You get that really fast gear change as well. One of the fastest gear changes I've ever felt, really. Obviously the engine sits far back because the gearbox hasn't got to be in the front. So you get this perfect balance of weight, 50-50. Coupled with the fact we've got this aluminium bonded chassis, just feels really rigid, really strong, really planted, really. That's the impression it gives you. It just gives you a feel of confidence in the car. So we're coming into a town now, 30 miles an hour. What I'm going to do is just drop it into sport, drop it into auto, and just kind of chill out a little bit with it. We're driving now at 20 miles an hour in auto, in 4th gear. So as we're coming back on our test drive, we're going to go and park it up. A good little feature to show you on this Vantage is the 360 cameras. So we have a button just down here on the left hand side. If we press that, you'll notice the display comes up with the 360 view on the left and then the main view on the right hand side. Now this main view you can actually alter. If you use your trackpad, you just flick up into the top menu system and then just go to the left or right. So you notice there in the screen we have the front wheels. If I do it again, then you have the rear wheels. This is great for when you're parking the car. Parallel parking, you know exactly where the curb is. So we're going to reverse it into this spot here. And I'm going to use my camera, so as soon as I go into reverse, then that goes into my rear wheel. I'm going to go into the rear view now. There we go. But don't forget, when you're on your test drive and you're going to come and park the car, go into the camera system, have a little play with that stationary, get used to that, because that's really useful. So I hope you enjoyed our little run there in the Vantage. We used all the mode buttons we wanted to show you and the paddles, but just be sure when you are going to go for your test drive is to use those buttons like we've shown you, and don't be afraid to use the paddles too. Get used to them, find out what they do, and you'll find out which mode you like. But it's an absolute joy to drive this car. Real lovely sports car, an everyday sports car. Thanks very much.